this is a tutorial about some basic operational use of the GroupInsight tool. When you first begin, you should see your data listed on the left and a report on the right if any of the records are selected. So if you don't see a report on the right, you can select a record, and then the report for that record will appear on the right. If I select multiple records, for example, I can press Control-A to select all records, then what I see on the right is a report that covers all of the users. If I don't see data on the left, if I don't see my records selected, I can go to the Setup menu and go to the Settings to check to make sure GroupInsight is configured correctly. Right at the top, I should see that the GroupInsight is set to use networked data, and the location should be wherever your RSIGuard data is set to be stored. If you're using health status reports, then this should be checked as well, and you would select where that was stored in this box. Down below here, we have some things that control which records are included. So for example, here it says by default searches should include data from the past 30 days. That's a good default, so we'll leave that. Here it says search results should omit users with less than 5 minutes of average activity or less than 5% of days of activity within the report period. Now this is designed to remove people from the report who use their computer in a very limited way. So somebody who uses their computer once a month or just a few minutes a day won't appear in your reports if this is checked. It's a good way to eliminate things like an IT person who logs onto a computer just to make sure that it's working. You don't necessarily want to see them in your GroupInsight report. And here you've got ignore users with no new data in the last. I have it set for 120 days, so what that does is it eliminates people after they stop using the computer. So for example, if they transfer to a different part of the company, or they leave the company, they'll keep showing in your reports, in this case for 120 days, but then they'll fall out of the reports after that time. Okay, so now we're looking at the data. I'll look at some of the columns that are up here. I've got the report number, I've got the name of the employee. If I click on it, then it'll sort by the name. I have the location. If I click on that, it'll sort by the location. Got department. Here I have the risk level, so this is RSIGuard's assigned risk rating, which is based on the break compliance as well as how much the keyboard and mouse and the computer overall are being used. And I can sort by that too, so if I want to do triage that is based on how high somebody's risk is at the computer, I can see this is the highest risk person, and going down the list, I'm going down to the lowest risk people. Here I can look at how much time they spend on the computer. This is their total hours on the computer column. Just to fit more things in here, I'm going to remove location. So to remove a column, I right-click on any of the columns, and you can see these are all the things that I can include or not include. So I'm going to uncheck location, and location will go away. So now I've got more space for the other columns. Give some space to hours total and break compliance. I can also change the width of the list area by moving this back and forth. This gives a little more space for columns. Of course, that takes a little space away that's available for the report. So here I'm looking at the total hours and the break compliance. If I want to see people who have low break compliance, I can sort by break compliance. And here I can see in this organization, my worst break compliance is 61%, and I have people all the way down to 95% break compliant. Okay, now I'm going to do a simple search for people. When I press Control-F, the search window comes up. So I only want to look at people who are in the maintenance department, because I'm going to go to a building that houses maintenance staff, and I want to look at people for whom break compliance is less than 75% break compliance, because I want to go talk to those people about using the break timer more. And you'll see that my settings now for the search are if the department is maintenance and if break compliance is less than 75%. And I'm going to look at just data from the last 30 days to make this determination about break compliance. And I'll say find. And that'll show me that I've got 12 people who fit this category. And here are the 12 people. And I want to let them know that I'm coming, so I'm going to send an email to let them know. So I'm going to send an email to this group of users. I'm going to say I want to send it to all the people in the currently found list. I want to send myself a copy, so I'm going to include my email address. This is, of course, demo data. That's why all of the email addresses are at demo.com. And I'll let them know what the subject is. And then I'm not actually going to write a message here, but if I were, I would complete this and go ahead and send an email to them letting know that I'm going to come and visit them and do some ergonomics work with them.
So let's take a look at some of the other search criteria you can specify. In the Find window, you can specify HR information like location, department, or whatever you've provided, like we did in the first example. You can search by hours on computer, mouse usage, keyboard usage. We already looked at some of the break timer statistics, but it's worth spending some time in here to see all the different options. You can look at forget-me-nots, and if you are using the Health Status Reports feature, you can also do searches around discomfort issues, where somebody has discomfort or if they have discomfort, how severe it is. You can also specify the range of time over which the report is done. So far we looked at reports that were done based on the last 30 days, but you can do it on a longer period, or you can specify any particular date range that you want to do so that you could compare, for example, a period of time from a previous year to the current year. Searching for overall risk level and work restrictions. And also, if you do a search that is useful that you want to do on a regular basis, you can save it so that you can load it in the future. When you've done a search and you're looking at a subset of the records, you can always click up here on this icon, All, to bring back all the records. You can get to the search by pressing Control F. You can do it from the Actions menu, or you can also do it by clicking on the magnifying glass icon on the toolbar. You can also use this for emailing or printing. Another thing is that when you select records, let's say I select all the records here, again by pressing Control A, what shows up on the right is a report that's based on all of the users that I've selected. And if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see that included in that there's things like break-taking behavior, and it shows me the overall break-taking behavior for the population that I've selected. But it also shows me some breakdowns of this information. What we're looking at right here is break-taking behavior by supervisor and break-taking behavior by department. So it shows me how different departments and different supervisors as employees compare. Now what I'm actually comparing here is changeable. So if you look at the top of the screen here, there's a select fields to compare. And in this case we have the choices of location, status, or supervisor. So if I chose location instead, now I'd be comparing break-taking behavior by location. And if I chose here to compare by, let's say, status, then I could compare full-time, part-time, or consultant. Now the actual choices of what you're comparing have to do with what HR data you're providing to RSIGuard, so you can have any comparison you want. You could compare people based on which of various versions of a software application they use. You could compare based on job title, any information that you provide to the database about employees. If I'm looking at a particular employee and I want to see more information about that employee, I can double click on the report number, or I can click on this icon up here. When I do that, it brings up the user insight data for that user. The user insight shows you detailed day-by-day information in graph format. We're not going to go over user insight in this tutorial. GroupInsight also has some built-in help. So if you click on the help menu, you can get additional help here. And there's also context help. So each line in the report has a question mark, and if you click on the question mark, it'll bring up information about how you can use that statistic, what that statistic means. And so that's a great way to help you understand what each part of the report means. And also you have the option to print. You can either print the record list, that's this left side, or you can print the report, which is what's on the right side. In the unlikely event that you need to do some type of data analysis that's not available within GroupInsight, you can export the records to a CSV format for analysis in a database or spreadsheet. If you update files, for example, let's say you update the HR database by adding new employees, GroupInsight typically tries to optimize how often it rebuilds its internal database, which makes it go faster. So if you change files outside of GroupInsight, the changes may not show up until the following day. But if I click on Rebuild Database from Source Files, that'll force it to do a rebuild of the database so that it'll be using the very latest data.
That's all we're going to do in this basic demo of GroupInsight. This was just to give you a quick idea of how the basic operation of GroupInsight works. Check out the tutorials online at RSIGuard.com to learn more about ways to use the GroupInsight tool.